Say word time. All right. I think y'all are ready. I think. We'll see in just a second, Michelle. We'll see. Luke chapter 24. Let me find it while I'm talking to y'all. We've got a bunch we're going to read, so. Bear with me. Luke chapter 24. Starting at verse 13. And we're going to read all the way to 30-something. Let's see where we're going to stop. We're going to stop around 30, 34, 35. When you have it, say, I got it. If you're using the screens today, say, I'm on my screen game. Okay, some screen game. Okay. All right. If you need me to wait, say wait. All right. I'm going to wait on you, my brother. You good, E? Can we start? Okay. All right. Luke chapter 24, starting with verse 13. Here's what Luke writes. He says, and behold, two of them were going that very day to a village named Emmaus. Everybody say Emmaus. Which was about 7 miles from Jerusalem. And they were talking with each other about all these things which had taken place. And while they were talking and discussing, Jesus himself approached and began traveling with them. But their eyes were prevented from recognizing him. And he said to them, what are these words that you are exchanging with one another as you are walking? And they stood still looking sad. Everybody say looking sad. And one of them, named Cleopas, answered and said to him, are you the only one visiting Jerusalem and you are unaware of the things which have happened here in these days? Everybody say days. In verse 19, and he said to them, what things? This is Jesus talking. And he said to them, what things? And they said to him, the things about Jesus the Nazarene, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word, and in the sight of God and all of the people. In verse 20, and how the chief priests and our rulers, they delivered him to the sentence of death, and they crucified him. Everybody say crucified him. But we were hoping that it was he who was going to redeem Israel. Indeed, besides all this, it is the third day since these things have happened. But also some of the women among us amazed us. When they were at the tomb early in the morning and they did not find his body, they came saying that they had also seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. And some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just exactly as the women also had said, but there was one problem. But him they did not see. In verse 25, and he said to them, O foolish men, say, O foolish men. And slow to heart to believe in all that the prophets have spoken. Was it not necessary for the Christ to suffer these things and to enter into his glory? Verse 27, then beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them the things concerning himself in all the scriptures. And they approached the village where they were going, and he acted as though he were going further. In verse 29, but they urged him saying, stay with us. Everybody say, stay with us. I lost my place. What verse am I? Fool, for it was getting toward evening, and the day is now nearly over. So he went in to stay with them. Verse 30, and when he had reclined at the table with them, he took the bread and he blessed it, and breaking it, and he began giving it to them. Then their eyes were open. Everybody say eyes were open. And they recognized him, and he vanished from their sight. They said to one another, were not our hearts burning within us while he was speaking to us on the road, while he was explaining the scriptures to us? In verse 33, and they got up that very hour. Everybody say very hour. And they returned to Jerusalem and found gathered together the 11, this is the 11 disciples, and those who were with them, saying, the Lord has really risen and has appeared to Simon. They begin to relate their experiences on the road and how he was recognized by them in the breaking of the bread. You may be seated. I want to talk to you this morning from the subject, if you will, or the title, if you will, what a difference a day makes. What a difference a day makes. Come on, y'all say that with me. What a difference a day makes. Come on, turn to your neighbor and just tell them emphatically what a difference a day makes. Find another set of eyes and say the same thing to them. What a difference a day makes. Already. From the H. 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year? Okay. No love. No love. A few years ago, in my only trip to New York City, Ebony, my wife, and I ended up on Broadway, and playing on Broadway that particular evening was a musical called Rent. I remember absolutely nothing from that musical. I don't do musicals. I don't do plays. I don't do movies well in the movie theater because I will doze off typically at some point in the production. When the lights go out and when it gets quiet, I tend to fall asleep. So I understand why some of you fall asleep in church. Not really. But I don't remember much from this particular play, but I do remember 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year? And in this particular play, they're talking about the fact that there are 525,600 minutes in a year. We understand that in the course of a year, a lot of things are possible. That's why every New Year's, we start off with resolutions. We start off with goals. We start off with all of these aspirations of what the new year can bring. We say, I'm going to lose 25 pounds in the new year. We say, I'm going to make so much money in the new year. We say, I'm going to go back to school in the new year. We're going to accomplish all of these great things in the new year because we say, look, I have 525,600 minutes to get my life together, to turn my situation around, to do something this year. When we start talking about Holy Week, things are not measured in years, but things are measured in days. We started off last Sunday talking about the triumphal entry. This is where Jesus entered into Jerusalem, getting ready to anticipate the Passover feast. We talk about the day known as Good Friday, the day that Jesus died on the cross. And we talk about Resurrection Sunday as a day that Jesus got up out of the grave. And so I want to present to you a different number. The number that is going to be the focus of our time here today. That number is 1,440. Everybody say 1,440. Come on, say it again. Say 1,440. That is how many minutes are in a day. And if we are intentional, and if we are prayerful, and if we are seeking to hear from the Lord, it only takes 1,440 minutes for your life to be completely transformed. We're going to see this today, that it doesn't take 525,600. It only takes 1,440 for your life to be transformed by Jesus. Good Friday was one of the single worst days ever recorded in human history. Resurrection Sunday is one of the most celebrated days in all of human history. And what we are going to talk about today is how one day can literally transform everything about your life, can literally transform the trajectory of your life and do something special. God can do something special in your midst. We pick up the text today and we meet a man named Cleopas. Everybody say Cleopas. I wonder what his mother was thinking about when she named him that. Cleopas, and then we find another guy that this man Cleopas is traveling with. We don't know his name, but we know that he's traveling with Cleopas. The scene kind of takes place right on the outskirts of Jerusalem, and they are on a road trip back to a village known as Emmaus. And as they are walking, the Bible shows us that Jesus pays them a very special visit. As they're walking down the road, they're talking about, I imagine if they were living today, they would have their phones out. They would be scrolling through social media. They would be on CNN.com. They would be on Fox News. They would be on the Houston Chronicle. They would be looking at all of the available information and news media's outlets of the day, trying to get as much information as they could about what had just happened in Jerusalem. Because what had just happened had literally turned the city upside down. Something very unexpected to the masses, but very expected for Jesus had just taken place. And they're trying to wrap their minds around what they just saw happen to Jesus, a man that they had so much hope in. And now they had lost all hope. How do we know they lost all hope? Well, in verse 17 of the text, the Bible says that they stood still when Jesus approached them and their faces were downcast. Everybody say downcast. Downcast simply means that they were sad. In verse 18, one of them named Cleopas said, are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened in these days? And Jesus says to him, what things? So now you got to understand, Jesus is kind of playing dumb with them. They don't recognize Jesus. And so Jesus is kind of using this opportunity just to kind of quiz them to see where their hope really rests this day. And they say, are you serious, man? You don't know what happened in Jerusalem? You must be the only person living under a rock, because everybody knows what just happened in Jerusalem, and you should too. Here they are with their eyes puffy from tears, bewildered by what they have experienced, shocked at what has happened in just 1 week, unsure about their future, and probably wishing that they can unsee what they just saw happen. Here they are on the road. You must understand that at this time, crucifixion was one of the most torturous, vile kinds of deaths that you could ever die. The Roman government at this time had perfected torture. They had perfected the art of crucifixion. They had perfected the art of human misery and human suffering. Why? So that you would not get out of line. If you would see the way that they brutalized people, and you would see the way people would be hanging on crosses, you would not get out of line. You would say, okay, I don't want to be on that cross like that. I don't want to suffer for 6 hours until I die like that. So I am going to get in line. And they had just seen perhaps the most brutal scene that they had ever seen in their lives. And I imagine they were wishing that they could erase what was now etched in their memory, especially about one that they cared so deeply about. They said to Jesus, this man that they didn't recognize, they say, you haven't heard about Jesus of Nazareth? They replied, he was a prophet who was powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers, they handed him over to be sentenced to death. And then they crucified him. They killed him. In verse 21, I want you to catch this phrase real quick. He says, but we had hoped. Everybody say, we had hoped that he was the one that was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it is the third day since all of this has happened, since all of this has taken place. He says, Jesus, this man that you've never heard about, was a man who was powerful in word and in deed. You should have seen some of the miracles that he did. You should have seen him feed 5,000 people. You should have seen one of his disciples walk on the water. You should have seen a man who was born lame, him pull him up off of a mat and tell him to walk again. You should have seen all of the miracles that Jesus has done. And man, I wish you could have heard Jesus teach when he was alive. Man, he would teach and people would just sit there for hours and hours and hours and listen to him teach. He was teaching as one who was sent from God. Man, this guy was powerful in word. Indeed, but we've lost hope. See, the circumstances of Friday and the circumstances of Saturday and even the circumstances of today have left us hopeless. It has shattered our hope. I want to ask you guys the question this morning before we really get into this thing. Where have you lost your hope? Let me ask you this again. Please listen to this one question. Where have you lost your hope? Clearly, for these two gentlemen, they had lost their hope back in Jerusalem. If they were to put out missing poster signs around the city where they would put we are missing our hope would be around the city of Jerusalem, because that is where they had lost their hope for the future. No matter your age this morning, no matter your gender, no matter what your bank account looks like, no matter how long you have known Jesus, at some point in time in your life, you have lost hope in some way, shape, or form. Perhaps at some point in your life, you would hope that you would climb to the top of the ladder so that you would have influence for other people coming behind you, but maybe you've lost hope. Perhaps at some point in your life, you would hope to go back to school, but you just kind of left those dreams on the bookshelf. At some point in time, you have been praying and hoping that a loved one would come to faith, but at this point in time, you've just given up. You've lost hope in that. Maybe at some point in time, you had hoped to be able to give back to your community in a significant way, but now you've just lost that hope. Perhaps you had hope that your child would get it together, that you wouldn't repeat the same mistakes that your father repeated. You had hoped to change the world. But somewhere along the line, discouragement has crept into your life, and you found yourself losing hope in some area of your life. It's not just you, it's also me. There have been times in my life where I've gotten so discouraged. Life has beat me down so bad that I have lost hope that God would use me in ministry. I lost hope that certain aspects of my marriage would be better. I've lost hope that we can really change the world. There have been times in my life where I've lost hope, Donovan. Times in my life where I lost hope about different aspects of my future. And if we're honest this morning, all of us at some point in time have gotten so discouraged that we have lost all hope. Maybe you lost your hope when you were in high school and you made some mistakes that it seemed like you would never recover from. Maybe you lost your hope in college where you were partying too much, hanging out with the wrong fraternities and sororities, and pretty soon you found yourself right back in Cyprus. Right down 290, started at Prairie View, and now you're back in Cyprus. Maybe you lost your hope when the loved one passed away. And you asked yourself, how can I move on without my loved one here to support me? Maybe you lost your hope as a child when you were mistreated in a relationship. Maybe you lost it back when you were a child and you may have been abandoned by some adults who were supposed to be taking care of you. All of us at some point in time, we have lost hope somewhere along the way. And if we would do an autopsy today on hope and ask ourselves, well, what made us lose hope? The autopsy would probably look the same as it did for Cleopas and his friend right here on the road. It's when our expectations are not met, we tend to lose hope. They had an expectation that Jesus was going to redeem them, and now Jesus is dead. They went to see his body. His body wasn't there. We don't know what happened to Jesus, but we have lost hope. It wasn't just that the expectations weren't met. The expectations weren't met in the time frame that they were expecting them to be met in. I see this right here in the text. He says, it's been 3 days, and we still have no answers. It's been 3 days and we still don't have any clarity in this situation. We have an unmet expectation, and the things that we thought were going to happen in a certain amount of time have not happened, and many of us live just like that. We had dreams, especially, I see this a lot with women. I'm not excluding you men, but most women say, hey, by 30, I want to be married by 30. Or is it 28? What is it? 29? 28, 29? I want to be married by 28, 29. I want to have my first kid at 31. I want to have my second kid at 33. I want to have my third kid at 35. I want to have my fourth kid at 37, and then I'm going to wrap that thing up, okay? I'm done. But then when that doesn't happen, by 32, and you're still single, 34, no kids, 36, 37, no kids, then all of a sudden we start losing hope that God can do what God said he would do. Sometimes we lose faith on our jobs. We've been working on our job for years, and we still haven't gotten the promotion that we thought we were deserving of. And so then we get on Indeed and we start looking for a new job because y'all don't respect what I do around here. Y'all don't pay me what I'm worth, but you agreed to the pay that they gave you. Y'all don't pay me what I'm worth. Well, you should have negotiated that before you signed your name on the dotted line. And so I'm going to go find somebody that's going to respect me. Why? Because we have certain expectations. And when they're not met in our time frame, we start to lose hope. This is what happened to these men. They had lost hope. Their hope was like a bucket with a hole in it. It's beginning to leak out. But if they were here today, they would tell you, well, hold on, Jerron, we didn't give up that easily. Keep reading the text. In verse 22, they didn't just give up hope when Jesus died on the cross, but it says in verse 22, he says, some of the women amazed us. They went to the tomb this morning, and when they came back, they said there was no body in the tomb. And so we started getting excited again. We started hoping again, But then some of our companions went to the tomb. There still was nobody, but we still don't know what happened with Jesus. So we didn't give up hope immediately. We had went back to, we had weathered the first storm, and then we went to see. We kept hoping, but still our expectations weren't met. There was a woman named Mary and her sister named Martha. They were friends of Jesus, and we see a very similar phenomenon happening in their lives. Their brother Lazarus got sick, and they sent word to Jesus. They said, hey, y'all go get Jesus. We're going to go get Jesus. Jesus is going to come here. He's going to raise Lazarus, or he's going to heal Lazarus, and then everything will just go on because he loves Lazarus. He loves us, and that's what they thought would happen. That was their expectation of Jesus, but Jesus does not come in time. And Lazarus dies. And now Mary and Martha have lost all hope in Jesus. Jesus comes on the scene, and they're like, where you been, bruh? You should have been here like 2 days ago. If you had been here, they said, our brother would not have died. So there's really no point in you being here now because you can't do anything. And we've lost all hope, faith, and trust in you. It's very easy to happen. We're a lot like that. We lose hope in Jesus. An interesting thing happens when all hope is gone. When we start to lose hope or get discouraged in an area, we then become like a tailor, like someone that works on clothing. Let me make my case. Back in the day when I was a little bit younger and a little bit slimmer, about 30 pounds ago and some years ago, I had bought a black suit, Donovan, because they tell you if you're going to have any suits, get a black suit because you need a black suit to interview with, right? Anybody ever been told that? If you haven't been told that, young men, before you buy a purple suit, before you buy a neon green suit, get you a black suit because if you're going to get a job, you need a black suit to interview with, okay? All right. Doing some career planning in here today. I have my black suit, and but after I got married, something weird happened. Like my first year of marriage, I gained like 20 pounds. I used to weigh like 160 pounds. And then after I got married, I like jumped up, like I'm in the 180s. I ain't gonna tell y'all where I am now, but I've been married for over a decade, so you can imagine it just keeps going up. But I gained like 20 pounds. And so when it was time for me to put on that black suit, guess what? Y'all know, some of y'all know. Anybody ever gain a little weight? You put on that suit and the thighs a little tight, that weight, you can't quite buckle the waist a little bit. And so this was my dilemma. I needed to wear my black suit. So I took my suit to the tailor. I said, hey, they're like, what do you need me to do to the pants? I said, well, I need you to, I don't know if I grew a little taller or what, but I said, I need you to take this hem out the pants. Take the hem out, the hem where it's rolled up at the bottom. Take that hem out so my pants aren't flooding. And I need you where it's kind of pinched on the side. I need you to let that out so I can breathe when I have these pants on. You understand what I'm saying? And so I went to the tailor, and the tailor made these adjustments. And the reason why they made the adjustments are they are trying to accommodate the shortcomings of my body. And this is what happens when we lose hope. We become a tailor and we start adjusting life to accommodate the shortcomings of God. Say, God, you've let me down. You haven't come through like I wanted you to. I'm just going to take matters into my own hands and start adjusting things in places that you never told me to touch, but I'm going to do it because you didn't come through. This is what happens when we lose hope. What we end up doing is settling for plan B, but still wanting the satisfaction of God's plan A. When we lose hope, we end up settling for a plan B for our lives, but yet we still want the satisfaction that comes with God's plan A. There was a man by the name of Abram in Genesis chapter 15. In Genesis chapter 15, Abram was an old man. He was ready to retire. He was ready to just go on the golf club course every day and just play golf and just wind down his last days. But in Genesis chapter 15, Abraham was made a promise. He was told before in Genesis chapter 12 that he would be the father of many nations, meaning he would have a whole group of people that would call him father. In Genesis 15, Abraham said, well, it's not going to come from me because I'm an old man and my wife is old and we don't have any kids, so it's not going to come that way. So, but in Genesis chapter 15, he was made this promise. In Genesis chapter 15, he had hope that God was going to do something in his life. By Genesis chapter 16, he had lost hope. How do you know he had lost hope? Because instead of trusting what God said was going to happen, him and his wife got together and they said, hey, God is never going to happen. God is never going to do what he said he'd do in the time frame he said he was going to do. We're going to settle for plan B. So they go and get the handmaiden of his wife. And they say, hey, you go sleep with her, you get her pregnant, and we'll just kind of make it seem like it's our baby. And then maybe God can use our plan B. So what they've done, they've adjusted for the shortcomings of God. They become a tailor in their own lives, and they're now adjusting things, and they're settling for a plan B, but they're still wanting God to bless them as if they're sticking to plan A. This is what it looks like for us today. Here's a little test for you today. Here's how you can tell if you have lost hope in a particular area of life. I call them the 3 Ds. There's disobedience, there's doubt, and then there's deferral. There's disobedience, there's doubt, and there's deferral. This is what happened to Abraham. He settled for sin because it didn't seem like God was going to do what he said he was going to do. That's how you know you've lost hope in a particular area of life, where you know God has told you to do this through his word. He's told you to do that through his word, but it doesn't seem to be working. Or in other words, I've heard people say, I've tried it the Christian way and that doesn't work. So now I'm going to try it my way. And so we just get comfortable and we settle into a life of sin, saying, I tried it to do it the sin-free way, but God didn't bless me. And so now I'm going to settle for the sinful way. We also do this when it comes to doubt. This is what happened to the 2 men, where God says he's going to do something through his word. And we say, you know what? My situation is too dire. God cannot turn this around. I'm too old. I've been through too much. I've got too many scars on my body. I've got too many scars in my life. I've got too much bad ink on my resume, and God can't turn this around. So we just settle for plan B. I guess I'll just stay where I am for the rest of my life and just try to make the best of it. Or we just defer. We just say, well, God didn't come through like he said he was going to come through. So I guess I'll just stay here and just get comfortable and good enough. This is where many of us live. This is where many people, you've got a good job. You've got the house that's okay. You've got a car that's okay. And you're like, look, you know what? I did have dreams of doing more. God told me that I was going to have more of an impact, but I've just gotten comfortable now. So I don't even want to do anything else because I have just gotten comfortable. But no, what you've really done is you have deferred the dreams of God and you settled for God's plan, for your plan B, instead of working and pressing and waiting and praying for God's plan A. This is what happens when you lose hope. And this is what happens to these men. They're stuck in this place of doubt. And it's so dangerous to get stuck in a plan B. It's so dangerous because when you get stuck, when I get stuck in a plan B, it gets really hard to see Jesus. The text says that this man rolled up on them, but they did not recognize him. But the text never suggests that Jesus put on a disguise. The text never suggests that Jesus put on a hat, put a mustache on, dyed his beard a different color. The text never suggests that he did anything to hide himself. But for some reason, they could not recognize him. And that's the danger in losing hope, is that when you lose hope and settle for plan B, it gets really hard for you to see how Jesus might be operating even in the time that you're waiting. It's hard to see Jesus. I was talking to a lady one time, one of my coworkers, and she had her glasses on top of her head and she was running around crazy looking for her glasses. Have you ever done that before? She's running around all over the unit, tearing stuff up, looking at the office. And I'm like, man, what is wrong? Are you okay? You know, what's happening? What's the wrong? I've lost my glasses. Your glasses, baby, they're sitting right on top of your head. Now, I couldn't judge her because not too long ago, I was looking for my keys. Oh my God, I'm going to beat these kids. They've taken my keys. They've hit my keys. I got to get somewhere. I'm running late, guard, and I'm ripping and running. I'm tearing up stuff. Where was the last place I put my keys? Stop. Calm down. Breathe. Where's the last place? Okay, when I came in, I stopped here. I went here. I put them here. I'm looking in the refrigerator. I'm looking in the cabinets. I'm looking in the pantry. I'm looking all over the place. I'm looking for my keys. Pat my pockets. Where are my keys? I look down. My keys are in my hand. My keys are literally in my hand. But because I was panicking, because I was worried, and because I was fretting, I couldn't stop long enough to say, wait a minute, just stop and just open your eyes and you'll see that the very thing that you're looking for is right there in front of you. And here are these men. The very one that they're looking for is standing right there in front of them. But because they had lost hope, they couldn't see Jesus right there in their midst. It's this thing called hope that I want to talk to you about very briefly. If these 2 men, Cleopas and his boy, if they could have trusted that Jesus was in the situation, they could have had what I call a Maytag hope. A Maytag hope. Y'all remember, if you're over the age of 40, I have to educate those under 40, myself included. Back in the day, there's an appliance company known as Maytag. Anybody got any Maytag appliances? You don't even know who your appliance is made by. Such a shame. Okay. Back in the day, Maytag was all the rage, okay? And the thing about a Maytag was that you could count on a Maytag. Maytag, it was almost like these were appliances that would never break down. They would never cause you any problems. And so the way that they would kind of market the quality and the durability of the Maytag appliance was they had what was known as the Maytag repairman. Now, the Maytag repairman probably had a job that many of us want. This brother never had to go to work. You would find the Maytag man always sitting down, chilling. If he was alive today, he would probably be watching Netflix at work all day. Why? Because the Maytag appliances never break down. So if a Maytag appliance never breaks down, you never have the need of a repairman to come and fix what's not broken. So the Maytag repairman is just sitting there bored. And that's how Maytag was marketing the indestructibility of their appliances. These appliances are going to last, and they're going to last you forever. And this is what these two men needed. They needed a Maytag hope. The only way that you guys and myself included are going to have a hope in Jesus that is indestructible and that stands the test of time is that if we have some trust to go along with it. See, hope is like a good man. Hope is like a good man. But trust is like the good woman behind him. You know, there's a saying that says, behind every good man is a what? Is a good woman. And so though you might see the man out front, though he might be decked out in a pink t-shirt and a powder blue jacket, though you might see him out front, what really makes the man good is that there's a woman that you can't see. You can see her if you just look back there. But there's a woman that you can't see, and she's trust. So trust gets behind hope. It allows your hope to be indestructible. I'm going to teach this in just a second. I'm just trying to lay it out for you just a little bit. So hope is what keeps your head up and your eyes open. Hope does this, but trust are the feet on the ground that keeps you moving, even when you get tired, even when there's some potholes in the road. Hope looks forward, but trust keeps you walking. Whenever you see rock solid hope, trust is going to be right there behind it. But when you lack trust, it's going to cause you at some point in time to lose hope. When you lack trust, it's going to cause you at some point in time to lose hope. We go to San Antonio every year. I told y'all some of y'all about this, but I'm going to just come clean and just confess what happened in San Antonio a few years ago. I told my wife what happens in San Antonio stays in San Antonio, okay? Because I don't want y'all clowning me, but I'm gonna just tell y'all because we're being transparent today. We went to San Antonio for our daughter's birthdays, and we went to the Children's Museum. We had a good time there, and it was time to go to the Airbnb that we were renting. And I was driving, feeling good. The trip had just started. We hadn't even done anything much yet. And as I was pulling, I'm looking at my wife, as I was pulling out of the Children's Museum, all of a sudden I found myself, and I found myself stuck on a curb. And she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, I drove up on the median, and now the car is stuck. I put it in reverse, and I'm hitting the gas, and now we are stuck on the median. And she's like, "What are you doing? How did this happen?" I'm like, "I don't know. I pulled out, and the median wasn't there, and the median just like jumped in front of me. What was I supposed to do?" So now we're up on the median. And now I'm starting to feel a little bit embarrassed because that's not what really happened, but I just didn't see it, and now we're up on it, and now we're stuck. So now it's middle of rush hour traffic. People are honking their horns, beeping. Everybody's staring. Who is this idiot that just drove up on the median? What is wrong with you? It's broad daylight. And how are you up on the median, man? People are looking at me crazy. So I'm like, I don't want to get out the car because that would be really embarrassing. I'm stuck on the car. So we called AAA, and we're trying to get a hold of AAA. And this really nice man got out of his car and said, "Just kind of, I'm gonna help you out, bro. I'm gonna help you out." And he stopped traffic on both sides, and he kind of lifted up the car, and he kind of eased the car back, and we backed up out that thing. And I said, "See, baby, it's gonna be all right. We're good. I'm trying to help this man grow. See, I'm trying to give him practice being a good Samaritan." And so now we head to the Airbnb. And so I said, well, let me just peek under the car to make sure that there's no damage or anything. And I look under, and now I see a piece of pipe kind of hanging down. I'm like, well, baby, don't worry about it. We can make it. I don't want to ruin the trip because the car would be in the shop and we'd be just stuck in San Antonio. So what I did, I got me a plastic Walmart bag. Didn't I, Ebony? I got a Walmart plastic bag. Got on my knees, got up under the car, wrapped it around the pipe, and kind of wrapped it to a metal piece. See, baby, look, you ain't got nothing to worry about. Your man gonna take care of this. Your man, I will shoot. So now we're driving around San Antonio. No problems. No, we're driving around. If the Walmart bag is still kind of sitting up under there, holding the pipe up. I'm like, baby, good. We have a good trip. We get back to Houston. I'm thinking it's all good. I'm like, I probably got 2 or 3 weeks to get this fixed. It's not that big of a deal. We get back to Houston, and almost like God just said, all right, it's time, brother. And we get back to Houston. We get in the driveway. I thought everything was cool. I crank up the car the next day. The check-in, every light came on. I'm like, dang. So I look up under the car at my temporary fix, and there's radiator fluid all over the driveway. Okay, so I'm like, all right, now we got some trouble, because now that temporary fix is no longer valid for what we're trying to do. And this is what hope and trust look like. See, hope will only get you so far. See, it'll get you from San Antonio back to Houston when you ran up on the curb. But it's going to take some trust to get up under that thing and fix some stuff so that your hope can last for some time. Temporary hope is based on the fact that there is temporary trust. Here's what happens in the text. Jesus says, watch this. Watch what Jesus says. Jesus is going to teach this point. He says, you foolish people, you foolish men. He's like, man, he just go hard on people, right? He's like, look, you foolish men, and how slow to believe all the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter into his glory? What Jesus is about to show them is that if they are going to rescue their hope, that they're going to have to find their hope and their trust in the scriptures. Not in what they've seen, not in the circumstances being good or bad. They're going to have to find their hope and their trust. They're going to have to find it in the scriptures. If you and I are going to find our hope and our trust again, we must trust that the Holy Spirit has fact-checked the scriptures, and what they say about Jesus and what he brings to my life is absolutely trustworthy. If you and I are going to recover our hope and our trust, we must believe that the Holy Spirit has already fact-checked the scriptures, and what they say about Jesus is absolutely true. Here's what he says. He says, you guys are foolish. You guys are foolish, meaning essentially they are unable to apply the scriptures in a wise kind of fashion. He doesn't just call them foolish, but then he says, but you guys too, you guys are slow to believe. You're slow to believe what the prophets have already told you. In other words, it's not that you don't know. It's not that you have never been taught. It's just that you are slow to believe. You're slow to trust what you've already been taught. You're slow to trust what I've been teaching you time and time in the scriptures. If we would just trust the text, even if we can't lay our eyes on Jesus, if they would have just trusted the text, even though they never saw Jesus get up out of the grave, they would have never lost their trust, and then they would have never lost their hope. If this day is to be a day that everything can change in your life, you and I must fix our trust issues with the text. So how does Jesus do it? Jesus says, hey, come to Bible study. Something I say, something Ron says on a regular basis, come to Bible study. Tuesday night, Soul Food Bible study, come to Bible study. You want to recover your hope and your trust in Jesus? Jesus says, come to Bible study. And here's what he does in the text. You think I'm making this up? Here's what he says right here in the text in verse 27. He says, and beginning with Moses and all the prophets, Jesus explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning him. Did y'all catch that? Jesus is about to take them through a personal Bible study. Now, he's walking them through the Old Testament from Genesis to Malachi. He's taking them all through that. Now, catch this. It was about 7 miles. Remember, it was 7 miles from Jerusalem to Emmaus. So Jesus is walking with them for 7 miles all the way to Emmaus. If they're walking at 15 minutes a mile, it is 1 hour and 40 minutes. I believe I did the math. It's about 1 hour and 40 minutes. Can you imagine having a Bible study that's 1 hour and 40 minutes and you're still interested? When I teach Bible study for 1 hour, people like this. Bruh, I got to go to work tomorrow. Bruh, I got to get these kids into bed. Bruh, what you doing, man? That's just 1 hour. But maybe it's because I'm not Jesus, cuz. Maybe because I'm not Jesus. But these guys, 1 hour and 40 minutes into Bible study, they say, Jesus, we want more. Watch this. I didn't make this up. In verse 29, when they got to the village, they urged him saying, stay with us. For it is getting toward evening and the day is now nearly over. They are wanting more and more Bible study as Jesus is breaking down the text for them. This is a great Bible study. It's an amazing Bible study. And he's not just taking them through the good stuff. He's also taking them through the bad stuff. See, y'all think because I'm the Messiah that everything's going to be good all the time. He's like, no. The scriptures tell you that I got to suffer some stuff. There's going to be some dark days. There's going to be some discouraging days. But don't lose hope. Trust in what the text has told you. This is what's going on. And so here they are. They're walking back to the village, and they're doing Bible study with Jesus. And Jesus is telling them basically, if you would have trusted what you had learned in Sunday school, you would have never lost hope. If you had trusted what has been taught to you Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, you would have never lost hope. If you would have trusted in what you've read today. Many of us today, we don't really trust the text. We don't really trust what's going on in the text. Some of us have grown up in church. You've been in Sunday school. You've been in Bible study. You've been in Easter programs. You've been in Christmas programs. You've been in fashion shows. You've been in Bible drills. You've been through all kinds of stuff in the church. You know what to do, but there's something that prevents us from trusting the text. Some of you, maybe you didn't grow up in church, but you've been hanging around Shine long enough. You know enough of the text to say, I don't have to lose hope if I just trust in what the text is telling me to do. See, many of us don't trust, we just appreciate. We appreciate the text. I appreciate, man, that was a good word, man. I appreciate that. Jesus, all that stuff you're talking about giving, man, I really appreciate that. That's really good. But see, the way my bank account is set up, I don't trust that. I appreciate it, but I don't trust it. I appreciate that you want me to forgive, and I appreciate the stories that you've given us, examples of forgiveness. But see, you just don't know how bad they offended me. So I appreciate it, but I don't trust it. I appreciate the fact that you are a healer, but you know what? It hadn't happened yet. So while I appreciate that you want me to continue to pray and to fast and to trust you, I appreciate that teaching, but I don't really trust it. So I'm gonna take matters in my own hands. I appreciate the fact that you tell me to share my faith. I really appreciate that. I mean, some good stuff could really, I appreciate that. That's a good word. But I don't trust it. I'm not about to go out there and talk to people. They may cuss me out. They may unfriend me on Facebook. I may not get invited to happy hour anymore. I don't trust that. Then what am I going to do? I appreciate it, but I don't trust it. And that's what these guys were. They appreciated the good stuff. They appreciated the text, but they did not trust it enough to actually do it. Sounds great, but it's not practical. It sounds good, but it just doesn't make sense for me. That's where many of us live. And if you and I are going to move from appreciation of the text to trust of the text, it means that we're going to have to go all in, take all of who we are and all of who we have, and we're going to have to bet on Jesus and what he said in the text. That's how we keep our trust. So the first way we keep our trust and our hope is to see Jesus and trust the text. The second thing we do is to trust and hope in the presence of Jesus. In verse 30, he said this, and when he had reclined at the table with them, now he's in their crib, he sat back at the table with them. He took the bread and he blessed it and he began breaking it and he began giving it to them. And watch this in verse 31. And then all of a sudden, it says their eyes were open and they recognized him. And at that moment, he vanished from their sight. Did y'all catch what happened? He took the bread and what did he do? He broke it, right? What does that sound like? Sound like communion, right? Sounds off. See, the reason why you didn't know that sound like communion, because you missed first Sunday. Because you missed communion, right? He took the bread, broke it, blessed it, right? So this is communion. So they're having communion, and all of a sudden, through communion, their eyes are open. Did y'all catch that? In communion, when they broke the bread and he blessed it, all of a sudden they could see. Now, we understand that it wasn't an eye issue that they had. It was a heart issue. It was a heart issue. They didn't trust the text. They didn't trust that Jesus was in the situation. But as soon as they took communion, they could now see that the man who has been with them all along is really the Jesus that they were hoping for from the start. The power of communion is real. What communion does is it reminds us of what Jesus has done for us. See, Jesus told his disciples on the Last Supper, he said, I want you to do this. Why? To remember me. Because if you don't remember me, you may lose trust that the fact that the text talks about me, you may lose trust in the fact that I am with you in the situation. So you come on First Sunday and Shine to take communion to remind yourself that I'm right here in the situation with you. It helps you see. And their eyes, all of a sudden, their eyes were open. All of a sudden, their situation, their countenance, everything changes. Because now Jesus is here in the midst. See, sometimes Jesus doesn't even have to do anything for us. We just need to know he's there. Like, Jesus, I know I'm going through a hard time, but if I could just trust and know that you are here with me in this situation, we're going to be all right. I'm going to keep my hope. See, there are times when I'm dealing with stuff in ministry, in the church, where I begin to lose hope, and I have to remind myself, no, Jesus is in this. Even though it's hard, even though you're discouraged, Jesus is in this, and if you can trust that, then you won't lose hope. And this is what Jesus does here. He says, look, I am here in your midst. You don't have to lose hope anymore. Y'all remember the Jerry Springer show? Jerry. Now, we're not going to do that today. We did Jesus last week. We're not going to do Jerry today. Y'all remember Jerry Springer show? Y'all remember this dude? Steve. Y'all remember Steve? Now, on the Jerry Springer show, for y'all that don't know, who don't watch Ratchet TV, this is back in the day. This is back when I was younger. Jerry Springer was on TV. And Jerry Springer always would have a very ratchet show. Y'all know what I mean when I say ratchet? It was just people just clowning, acting crazy. He would just bring the craziest acting people. Like Oprah would have a real good show. Jerry would have a ratchet show, right? So Jerry would have these people, and he would bring people who are having relationship problems, people who would violate each other, all kinds of just crazy stuff. And inevitably, every show, what would break out? A fight. There was a fight. Every show, you could guarantee it. You just didn't know when it was going to happen, but you knew there was going to be a fight. But who was there? Steve. Steve was right there. Steve was right there. So even when you would get nervous, like, ooh, that's a big dude, and that's a little dude, and that little dude is in trouble. When this fight break out, that little dude is in trouble. And then all of a sudden, that camera would pan the crowd, and you see Steve sitting right in the front row. And you're like, oh, okay, he all right, because Steve right there. Steve is right there. Steve is going to make sure that everything turns out okay. This is what Jesus does. When we can remember that Jesus is in our midst, even though the situation, the problem, whatever it is that we're going through, it seems so big, it's going to beat us down. If we can just pan the camera of our focus onto Jesus, we'll see, okay, look, it's going to work out okay. Steve, even if you don't do anything, Steve, as long as you're there, we know we're okay. Jesus, as long as we know you're there, as long as we know that you're present in the midst, we are going to be okay. Many of us have lost hope. We lost our trust because of rejection, because we don't think we're good enough, because we're scared to step out in faith. We settle for plan B, but you can get your hope back today if you would trust what you've already been taught in the text. And if you could trust and see that Jesus will never leave you and he'll never forsake you. He's right here in the midst. And here's what we see in verse 33, and I'm done. It says, and at that very hour, watch this, after their hope was restored, their trust was restored, they returned to Jerusalem. Wait, what? They just walked 7 miles. It's getting late. It's probably all nighttime. And they were so excited that they get back up out the crib and they go back 7. Did y'all catch that? They walk another hour and 40 minutes back to the place where they just came from. And they found gathered together the 11 and those who were with them, saying, the Lord has really risen. It is true. And he has appeared to Simon. They went back the same night. And what they were discovering, what they were telling the disciples is, you know what? It is not a waste of time for us to have listened to what the text says. It was not a waste of time for us to put our hope in Jesus. It was not a waste of time for us to trust that Jesus could come through no matter what. It was not a waste of time. It really happened. We didn't waste our time. We didn't waste our time. Even though it appeared that we were right and God was wrong, at the end of the story, it appears that we were wrong and God was right. Now, if you're anything like me, you hate to be wrong. If you're anything like me, and I know some of y'all in here are, you hate to be wrong. See, you hate to be wrong so much, you know you're wrong and you still arguing as if you're right. You will say that the sky is purple. Married couples, you know what I'm talking about. Your spouse will say the sky is blue, and because you want to be right, you're like, no, it is purple. And you will be sitting there arguing, and you know it's blue. But why? You just don't want to be wrong. You just don't want to be wrong. I'm like that. Maybe not about the sky, but I'm like that about other stuff. I just don't want to be wrong. And many of us, we just hate being wrong. Our skin begins to crawl when we're wrong. Wait, I just don't want to be wrong. And it's called pride, right? Ego, arrogance. A lot of us have it. We all suffer with it to some degree, but we don't. Raise your hand if you don't like to be wrong. Okay, couple honest folks in the house. Good. You don't like to be wrong. But there are certain times when you're happy to be wrong. As much as you hate being wrong, there are certain times in your life when certain things happen, you are happy that you're wrong. You're like, hey, I was wrong. You thought your bonus was going to be like $100 and it comes back $1,000. You're like, I'm glad I was wrong. Look, and you tell everybody, look, I was wrong. And you're happy to be wrong. There's certain times in life where you're just happy to be wrong. This is the same thing for these disciples. They were happy. They were happy that they were wrong this time. They were happy that they thought it was over. They had lost hope. They felt like they had been duped and deceived by God. And then all of a sudden, it turned out that they were wrong and God was right. And they were happy to be wrong. There is a man named Tiger Woods. Y'all remember Tiger? That's kind of fuzzy. I couldn't find a better picture of Tiger. Y'all know when this picture was taken? Last week. Last Sunday. The reason why I put Tiger Woods up here is because, Tiger was on top of the world at one point. I mean, everybody knew Tiger. When your name, when they only have to say your first name, and everybody in the world knows who you are, then you know you've arrived. Tiger was on top of the world. Tiger had a couple issues. We're not going to get into his issues today. But Tiger had a couple of issues, and Tiger went from the mountaintop to the valley. Tiger was in the valley for a minute, y'all, like for 10 years. Tiger, that's a long time to be in the valley. He was in the valley for like 10 years. Now watch what happened to Tiger. Everybody wrote Tiger off. I wrote Tiger. I'm like, Tiger done. Like, I like Tiger. I appreciate what he did for the sport and everything, but Tiger's done. The golf world had written Tiger off. All of his endorsements, they gone. They're like, Tiger, he was great in his glory. He made us a lot of money. He made a lot of money. Everything's good. It's just time to move on. Tiger is done. What happens last week? Tiger wins the Masters. For the first time in forever, Tiger wins. And this is the time where when you see Barack Obama and Donald Trump giving praise about the same situation, you know something just took place. Barack jumped on Twitter, Donald jumped on Twitter, and they both saying the same thing. That has never happened before. Happened last week. Why? Because everybody thought that Tiger was done. All of a sudden, y'all ain't rooted for Tiger in years. Now everybody a Tiger fan. Now everybody pulling out the red shirt that don't even fit no more. You got your red shirt on Sundays. Everybody got their Tiger Woods gear back out. You got your Nike swoosh. You trying to act like you've been with Tiger the whole time. You ain't been with Tiger. You had been written Tiger off. All of a sudden you're saying, I'm happy I was wrong. Because Tiger is back on top of the world. The game of golf is happy that they were wrong. Why? Because Tiger makes them money. Because Tiger makes golf relevant again. Now we're talking about golf again. Why? Because everybody who wrote him off was wrong. And now he proved that we were wrong. And we're happy about it. If you lost hope today and you thought that you were right and you thought that God was wrong, I've got good news for you. If you feel like God cannot help you overcome what you're dealing with, you're wrong and God is right. If you feel like that you cannot be victorious in life, guess what? You're wrong and God is right. If you feel like that you can't be forgiven for the mistakes of your past, guess what? You're wrong and God is absolutely right. If you feel like grace is no longer available for you, guess what? You're wrong today and guess who's right? God is right. If you feel like God cannot use you significantly for his kingdom, you are wrong. And God is right. If you feel like you've been stuck in a cycle of sin or you're bound by the chains of addiction, bound by the chains of sin, bound by the chains of you just tripping over your own self, guess what the good news for you is today? You are wrong and God is right. If you've let rejection, if you've let low self-esteem, if you've let the mistakes of your past, if you've let the laziness and the apathy of the present cause you to lose hope and lose your trust in what Jesus can and will do in and through you, I have good news for you today. That Jesus is no longer in the grave. It appeared that way on Friday that we were wrong. It appeared that way, that not just we were wrong, but that God was wrong. Because when we read in John 3:16, it says, God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten son, that whosoever shall believe in him shall have eternal life. And we're saying, well, wait, he's dead. Looks like you're wrong. On Saturday, when there was nothing going on, just people trying to wrap their minds around what happened, it looked like God was wrong. God, how did you blow this so badly? God, why have you duped us? Why have you deceived us so deeply? It looked like God was wrong. But early Sunday morning, when they went to the tomb, the lady saw an angel. And the angel said, you're looking for living people among the dead. There's nobody here. There's nothing to see. There's nothing to do. Jesus has gotten up out of the grave. God, it turns out, at the end of the day, was right. If you're here today and you've given up on God, you've been so discouraged by the circumstances of your life. If you're here today and you've found yourself just settling for plan B, and you've gotten really comfortable in it, and you've perhaps built a good life around plan B, the good news for you today is that you can let go of plan B and you can embrace God's plan A for your life again. Jesus is here. And Jesus says this to us in his word. He says, come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. All you got to do is come to me. Come to me. Come on. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. Just come to me and I'll make an exchange with you. I'll give you my life, my sinlessness, my holiness. I'll give you my perfection, my hope. I'll give all of that to you, and you can give me all of your mess, all of your mistakes, all of your guilt, all of your shame, all of your fear, all of your anxiety. Give me all of that, and I'll give you me. And when you have me, you are more than a conqueror. You can do all things through me because I will give you the strength to do it. And that is what is available today.